All right, folks, we have a great guest with us. We've had him on before. He's the host of Off the Grid. He's former governor of Minnesota, Navy SEAL, an actor. I mean, just an incredible resume, an author, just a great stuff. Jesse Ventura. Jesse, thank you so much for fitting us into your schedule. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, Brandon. How are you?
Oh, we're so blessed, and thank you so much for fitting us in. And let's jump right through some of these topics. I mean, the midterm elections just wrapped up, and obviously the American people decided to kind of reinstate the Republicans as kind of leadership here, not just in Congress, but across the country. And I really wanted your thoughts on, do you feel that this is a vote against the incumbent presidency? We see that through the cycles. Or do we think there's something else here that's kind of festering?
No, I think it's a case of that I take the positive look at what happened. I mean, I don't like the fact that the Republicans have taken control, because then the science gets put on hold. Anytime the Republicans control anything, you can kiss science goodbye, and that troubles me greatly. But on the flip side, I took the positive look at this, and I thought, you mean to tell me, what was the national election, about 36, 37% showed up?
Yeah, it's a very small number, and it's always discouraging.
Yeah, well, that's actually not discouraging. It shows that if I were to run in 2016, that I would have 64%, a majority out there waiting for me to do it, because they're so disgusted with what they have, they won't even vote. And the same thing occurred in Minnesota. That's how I won. Was the fact in Minnesota the pot was less. In Minnesota, we lead the nation in voter turnout always, and we get 50% in the midterms. So I only had 50% to deal with. Here I'd have 64 nationally, and you could bet I'd steal some votes from their 36.
Well, I definitely could see that happening, because I know that.
And that's the point I look at. They've disgusted the American people so bad and given them such a hopeless future that 64% of Americans refuse to even participate, which is pathetic. And so what you had happen was, guess who votes the most? White people. Well, who do white people mostly vote for? Republicans.
Yeah.
So it was simply the percentage of white people was the highest. The other 64 chose not to go, and that's what you saw happen. Is simply that we're ruled by minority decision now, because they can't even get 50% of the public to participate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair assessment. I think that we do see that similar cycle in most midterms, though, that we see a less of a turnout for the Democratic Party. We see a smaller turnout by minorities. They're more interested in it. I think that kind of goes to education, though, right? Because when you grow up in public education, you're preamed and propered and motivated to pay attention to a presidential election. But by the way, there's one that happens in the middle too, and many of these kids coming out of school probably don't even know who their governor is, let alone who their state reps are, right?
Well, and that's our problem, isn't it? That's the essence of our problem. It's all our fault, which it is. And let me explain. When our country was created by our forefathers, they said that it would require citizen participation and for citizens to be vigilant.
Yeah.
And we've dropped the ball, haven't we?
Absolutely.
Citizens are not participating. They're not being vigilant. And they warned us, this great experiment, this melting pot. They said, if this doesn't happen, it'll fail. And so it's our own fault that it's failing, because we're not being vigilant. I'm called a radical, and yet I'm common sense middle, but I'm a vigilant citizen. If you're vigilant today, you're radical.
Well, and definitely because you speak out and you're so vehemently consistent.
Being vigilant.
Yeah,
that
right.
is being vigilant.
Right.
When I see something, I question it, and I speak up. I exercise my First Amendment rights that were given to me to be able to do that. Well, that's now, I'm portrayed by mainstream media now as being a fringy, as being this. If I question something, I'm a conspiracy theorist, and they channel you down these roads of morphing words. I mean, I find it, get this for a minute, I find it amazing that they have now morphed the word truth to be bad. If you're called a truther, something's wrong with you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in other words, the truth is bad, so therefore lying, which is the opposite, is good. And it seems that started with Bush and Cheney. they seem to be the lead on that, of making it to where, truth be bad, lie be good. And we've accepted that because the word truth now has a bad connotation to it. How can truth be bad in any way, shape, or form?
But we see that across the board. I know we're kind of getting a little bit off topic, but let's go a step further with that, because we're also seeing the same thing with a word called consensus. They just say a consensus says, so therefore, now you're labeled a truther because you're not going along with consensus. You're not going along with the consensus of X, Y, or Z. You get branded something, so then you're basically sort of kind of put to the side. Your opinion doesn't matter.
You're marginalized.
Marginalized.
Absolutely. You're marginalized. That's a tactic. That's warfare.
Yeah.
And that's what we're up against right now. Is that you'll be marginalized. I know they attempt to do that to me always.
Yeah.
To marginalize me. But unfortunately, they don't seem to have the ability to put me away.
Well, you, like many others, continue to pound the drum and try to be as loud as possible. One area that you've railed on has been the Koch brothers, corporate cronyism, that kind of thing. And I just want to point out again to our readers and our listeners, Tom Steyer spent $73 million on the midterm election. Michael Bloomberg, $20 million. The list goes on. How on earth do we even compete when elections are being hijacked in this way?
Well, that's the problem, and we got a Supreme Court that allowed it to happen with their ruling by who we put on the Supreme Court. That shows how important that is, because they ruled corporations have the same right as you and I, and that corporations can participate in elections, which is, and I get in trouble for this on my show, that is the very definition of fascism. And I refer to us as the fascist states of America today. And people get outraged at me for that. I guess the truth hurts. I guess they don't really understand, because Mussolini'd be proud of us today.
Harsh words
he
indeed.
He would be saluting the United States today, because we have allowed corporations. Our Supreme Court says they have the same. Well, then, if they have the same rights as we humans, why don't they pay the same tax rate?
Yeah, I don't want to
Notice that it doesn't apply on that.
Yeah, definitely different rules.
That they want all the things that humans get, but they don't want to pay the same tax level than an individual human. If they're equal to us, then they should pay the same in taxes as we do and be under the same rules.
Well, let me spin on that then, because taxes would be similar. Because I have the same question for you. I think we may disagree a little bit on minimum wage, but the same problem to me would arise with taxes. And that is, if the corporation, we raise the minimum wage, how is it that the corporations are not just going to pass that along to the consumers and penalize the people that, good intention, so.
I've taken a bold position and said, instead of the minimum wage, how about we implement a maximum? Now people have said to me, how dare you, that's communist, that's socialist. Oh, no, it's not. It's out there right now in our daily lives. You know where it is?
Go ahead.
How come they're allowed to put salary caps in pro football, pro baseball, pro basketball, and pro hockey? How come LeBron James can't get paid what the market will pay him? He lives under a salary cap. Now, I'm not saying they don't make too much anyway. Maybe they do. But the point is, they're already capping, and this is the billionaire owners doing it. They're capping their talent, the workers, so the workers can only make so much. Well, let's take them salary caps and apply them to corporations. And I've already come up with a great number arbitrarily. $24 million. If you can't live on $24 million a year, $2 million a month, then I'm an opponent of capital punishment, but I'd like to see it reconsidered if you can't do that. Follow me, you can laugh at that. I oppose capital punishment, but the point I'm making is, what human on this planet couldn't live on $2 million a month?
No, I agree with that.
So
that
why
part,
not?
Right.
You got CEOs today making over 350 times what the worker makes.
Yeah, but the company
Does the CEO
itself
do equivalent work to earn that? No.
Yeah, but the company still has the right to pay or not pay that. So your analogy with the NBA.
Wait. We have salary caps in pro sports. How are they allowed to do that?
Well, that's what I'm asking. So the NBA is to blame there because they have caps. So if we try to go to a corporate thing, who gets to decide what the cap is? So that at
Well,
that point we'd have to go.
that's why you elect people. That's called
Well,
the law.
it seems like
People
that's
you elect vote and create laws. They're the ones that make the rules. And instead of a minimum wage, let's have a maximum wage.
I would just feel very uneasy to know that Mitch McConnell,
Really?
John McCain, and Lindsey Graham get to have a say in what my maximum.
Well, they're not going to do it. You think it's going to happen on their watch?
No, of course not.
I'm talking about if we got independence in there, get these two political. See, your problem comes down to this. You want the basic problem? The problem comes down, we keep electing Democrats and Republicans, and as long as we do that, this is the government we're going to get. So it's our fault. We keep electing them.
Okay, so let's go down
the
that road.
Democrats aren't the answer. For all the liberals out there that think somehow the Democrats are the answer, you see, if you vote one way or the other, it doesn't make any difference because both sides are completely paid off by their lobbyists, their big money, their corporations. And it's like betting on the Super Bowl. If you bet on both teams, you don't lose no money, do you?
Yeah, right. And that's what they've
done.
Yeah,
they've paid off both sides. So it doesn't matter whether you have Barack Obama or a Republican president. You are going to get the same government no matter what.
And this hits close to home for us here in Florida, folks, because we saw this. We talked a lot about this during the governor's race with Rick Scott and Charlie Crist, that the third-party candidate, in this case was a libertarian named Adrian Wiley, didn't have the financial wherewithal to be able to buy ads on their in their newspapers and on their TV stations. So he was ignored and excluded from debates, even though he had more momentum than the other two candidates. And that seems to be the problem that I see with a third-party candidate, Jesse, is how do they get enough of the ball rolling to generate the fundraising to be able to compete?
Well, see, you hit the nail on the head, but the problem is this. See, I don't support third-party candidates anymore.
Okay.
You know what I support? The abolishment of all political parties. Let's turn them into political action committees, what they are anyway. They're bought and sold by the corporations. Make them no different than anything else. Make every candidate run on their name and abolish political parties. John Adams agrees with me. Tom Jefferson, George Washington. Political parties are the problem because it's the political party is who they have their loyalty is to the political party first. Then it's to their donors to the political party, and in other words, the money, and we, the people, might be third. And it does not matter. The Democrats are the same way.
Well, I couldn't agree more.
With these two parties, it does not matter. They are both and they have a whole system created based upon bribery. If you did that in the private sector, you'd go to jail. But in the public sector, it's alive and well. All you do is bribe them, and you get audience. If you don't bribe them, you don't get it. And so that's the point in which we need to abolish political parties. Why do we put their names on election ballots?
Folks, this is what you're going to get on Off the Grid with Jesse Ventura. It's just hard-hitting, no-nonsense information, waking people up. And, I think that the problem, obviously, Jesse, is you're talking about just turning over the apple cart, and the American people is just a distracted, apathetic population of voters for the most part. And that even when we get pods, we got to figure out ways to kind of,
Well, one of the big things we could do that I've been an advocate of for over 20 years now, abolish the income tax and go to a national sales tax.
Yeah, that and the flat rack, yeah.
If you do that, you get equality then. Because then everybody pays, and you don't have to tax food, you don't have to tax clothing over, say, $200 in value, so the essentials of life would not be taxed. But everyone would pay because everybody buys. And truthfully, that would make it this way. Right now, the government's number one because they get your money before you do.
Yeah.
In a national sales tax, you'd get the gross on your check, and you determine what you pay taxes on by what you bought. And the government would get it second. And it would be imperative for them to keep the economy rolling and you buying things so that they could get paid. novel?
Well, we both know that they're not going to want to touch
and there wouldn't
the
be
IRS.
Loopholes. No, there wouldn't be loopholes.
Oh, I know. Right.
There wouldn't be loopholes. The rich couldn't hide because, and all taxes would be paid business to government, which is already being done. You as a citizen would never have to keep records or face the IRS again because all your taxes would be paid at the point of purchase. So I wouldn't have to worry about being audited as an individual, because everything would be paid on a national sales tax basis. It makes common sense. That's why they'll never do it, and it's fair.
Well, there's a ton of these topics that we can dive into. Obviously, legalization of marijuana. Immigration's a hot topic, obviously, with what the president just did officially last night, social issues. Let's go to immigration for a second. I mean, obviously, I don't think anyone, I think everyone's kind of reeling that he goes through with it, right?
Well, first of all, you got to remember I'm biased. I spend over half the year off the grid living with the brown-skinned people that we're so afraid of. We want to build walls up and put military cannons at our border because we fear these people. Imagine the courage I have. I don't even speak their language, and I live amongst them nearly 1,000 miles down in their country. And so I'm biased. You know, I love the Mexican people. I choose to live with them over half the year. And I'm also of the belief that freedom also is, if I'm a business, I should have the freedom to hire who I want to work for me, and it should have no basis on their citizenship.
I agree with you to a certain extent. Obviously, I feel the same way about them as human beings. But where I would rather go, because to me we didn't address the problem. The real problem is we didn't make it any easier to become a citizen. It shouldn't cost $10,000 to become a citizen. If you want to come to America and work hard and do what you're supposed to be doing, it shouldn't be, I got to pay some lawyer thousands of dollars. The other issue, it's similar to adoption, right? Because adoption, you got to be $40,000 rich and got to be investigated by a government agent to be able to tell you can adopt the child, even if you have some already. That's to me the core of the problem. It gets spun by I think the liberals as the racism that you're speaking on.
I think the core of the problem is even simpler than that. Why do I, as a human being, need to have paperwork to go around the planet?
Well, then you're talking about taking down borders completely, because obviously a nation is defined by a border.
I'm talking about making them like. And let me give you an example. I don't fly anymore. I haven't flown now in nearly 10 years because I have metal in my body and I'm tired of being treated like a criminal at airports. So I choose not to fly. So I drive to and from my home in Mexico 3,000 miles every year. And when I drive into Mexico many times, there's nobody even there.
Right.
I've actually stopped my vehicle, rolled the windows down, and said, doesn't anybody at least hand you a piece of paper and say Buenos Dias? No.
Nobody.
Yet when I turn around and come to the United States, the bastion of freedom, it's like Checkpoint Charlie in Berlin. The only thing missing is the tanks, and I'm sure they're on their way. But it's 7 lanes of traffic, 3 hours of sitting there. I've seen global climate change happen before my very eyes because the temperature on my rearview mirror, my pickup truck, goes from 99 to 116. Sitting there waiting to cross the border, 95% of the license plates or more are U.S., and yet getting back into our own country is like getting into East Berlin today. And yet when I drive to Mexico, I can drive right in and nobody's even there. Because and so why shouldn't I be able to go to and from? Why do I have to clear all this? And then they give you the same questions at the border, which I find amazing. I give them Cheech and Chong now at the border. The first question you'll get is, how long have you been in Mexico? First of all, what business is that of theirs?
Agreed.
Why do they need to know how long I've been there? So I give them Cheech and Chong. I tell them, well, I've been there a week, I've been there a day. I'm sorry, a weekday. I do it on purpose. Then they'll ask you sometimes, can I see your driver's license? And I'll look around and I'll point, well, ain't it, or can I see your license? And I'll look around, I'll point, and I'll go, well, ain't it on the back?
That's fantastic.
But I do it on purpose because to me it's aggravating. You want to know what they took from me? Here's you got your border Homeland Security. Let me give you an example. I came across the border. They knew who I I was, Governor Jesse Ventura, and yet they confiscated something from me and wouldn't allow me to keep it. You know what it was?
Something that was autographed.
My dog's dog food.
Oh, geez.
And because I have a special dog, I buy the food in Minnesota. I swore to them it was purchased there. I carry it in mass quantities to Mexico. When I come home, I take just enough to get home. And because it wasn't in its original container, they took it. My dog's dog food. Now, I could understand if I had 50-pound bags, but I had enough for, and I explained there's only enough for my dog.
Wow.
To get to Minnesota, and they took it. This is your border. This is what you're paying for. This is the security that lets you sleep at night, knowing that your borders are safe. They're confiscating dog food.
So let's reconcile it a little further, because I mean I totally agree with you. I'm not trying to say that. I'm trying to be a little bit of a devil's advocate here.
I'm just explaining. I'm explaining to you what really
we're stopping terrorists. We're stopping terrorists one bag of dog food at a time. So how do we reconcile that against the real threat of, let's say, Islamic State? Now I'm not saying they're at our Mexican border.
Wait a minute.
Because that's what the critics are going to say, right? They're going to come at us with that.
Here's the racism of it. You want a little racism of it? Here we go. I got it for you. Right away, the Islamic terrorists are going to come up through Mexico with the brown-skinned people. We better secure the border and make it safe, right? Excuse me. If you believe 9/11, what they told you completely, the 9/11 hijackers came in through Canada.
That's correct, yeah.
Well, why immediately did we need to secure the southern border? Racism.
Right. Yeah.
That's why. The brown-skinned people, they're the ones. What we're doing, remember, here's what you need to look at. Go read history. The United States of America today is behaving identical to Germany in the 30s. We're picking out. In the U.S. here, we've gone through the litany. I remember when Irish were persecuted. Then the Jews were persecuted when they came here. Then the Italians and the Puerto Ricans. It just happens now it's the Mexicans.
Well, we definitely have created a slave class, and I think that's
to me that's slave class. It's racism.
Yeah.
You didn't hear the border at Canada is way more porous.
Yes.
Than the border at Mexico. The hijackers of 9/11 came through Canada, and yet all you hear about is securing Mexico. And do you realize if you do that, you will destroy the agricultural economy of California, and the price of food is going to go way up, because if Jesse Ventura is out picking strawberries, I'm going to charge you $500 an hour. So people, I hope they're ready for that. When they secure that border and they make it all safe, I hope they're ready to be paying probably double or triple for their food.
Wow. Well, I think they may be paying double or triple for their food anyway, depending on how they...
Oh, no, they won't, because the migrant worker gets most of it, and we pay him crap.
Yeah, well, I just meant because of the situation with our Federal Reserve and the instability that we've built in and of itself of our fictitious successful economy.
Out on a people level, it's, I got to laugh over it. Nobody's concerned. There's places in Canada where you can cross over and there's nobody there on a road.
Right.
How come we're not worried about that, but we're worried about Mexico?
Well, there's no political gain with worrying about the Canadian border, right? I mean, let's go back. I don't want to.
No, why
I don't want to make it.
Right.
Let me back off of that. Just a hint. But there's not Democratic voters, right? Let's go down that conspiracy theory, right? Because I mean, let's face it. The Democrats stand to gain, obviously, much more than the Republicans. The Republicans are looking at it for their corporations as cheap labor. The Democrats are thrilled because they get more likely they'll get more voters out of the deal.
Not really, because look at your last election, 36%, and it was all the white people. It wasn't the Hispanics voting.
Well, yeah, but it was still what Hispanics did vote, always vote, even in the lesser turnout.
Call it what it is, racism. It's called racism. We're not worried about Canada because they're white.
Well, we seem like it'd be easier to pick out the terrorists that are crossing, since most of them are white on the Canadian border, then, right?
I guess.
Let's talk about.
If you deem all terrorists to have brown skin.
Well, I was just basing that off the stereotype, right?
Yeah. I don't think. I think that the Mexicans are much darker than the Middle Easterners.
Yeah, yeah. Off the grid now. You've wrapped up. Taking a little bit of a break now, headed into the holiday season. Tell us a little bit about what you've been able to get out of that, and how you kind of want to grow and how you want to move forward with the show.
Well, for me, it's the ideal show. I'm not governed by the FCC. The government has no control over me. I have freedom of speech because I can say what the word BS means. I can use the long term for it. And I love that. And I have total control of the show. They're dynamic. They're hard-hitting, only 10 minutes to do them. And at this point in my life, I don't want to work any harder than that because I'm 63. I got a lot of surfing to do and a lot of other things of that nature when I'm off the grid to do. And so it works out perfectly for me. And I love doing the shows because of the freedom that I have. I love where I do them off the grid down in the far reaches of Mexico because I truly like my lifestyle down there. I watch no television down there. I read books, and I live I live in a world where my world is only what I can see, and it's real refreshing. And when I'm down there, the people I hang with, the last thing on their mind is the stock market.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I find it gives me a dual life, a life that I can leave the hectic of the United States and its chaotic craziness and fear. One thing I've noticed, way down in Mexico, the people are dirt poor, and yet their children are laughing and having fun. You hear much more laughter amongst these poor people than you do amongst the people of the United States who are in a state of fear, done so by our own government. Everyone up here lives in fear day to day, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think it's bad for your health.
Do you see more online programming and online news outlets going in that direction? Obviously, Aura TV's obviously digging in to be a leader in this direction. I know what we do.
I don't know if you'll see more going that direction, but I think you're seeing, especially the young people, are not tuning in to traditional mainstream media. If you look at Fox News, for example, big bad Fox News, their median age, get this, the median age of their viewer is, I think, 73.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very old audience.
That tells you Fox News is going to disappear in another decade.
Well, and the other thing
they
too,
change because all their people are going to die.
Right, and then you got the flip side of that with the MSNBC crowd. It's very polarized, and then the online stuff, especially whenever you have access to international media, which don't have the American agendas clouding everything. You get more truth faster.
Yeah, I do more interviews now for Russian television than I do for U.S.
Yeah, they're great news, by the way.
And Russian TV allows you to talk. They're not soundbite.
Right.
See, our news media today is all soundbite news. I mean, look at how pathetic. The other day, I remember it the other day, they landed a space vehicle on a comet.
Yep.
And that was the second news story to Kim Kardashian's ass.
Yeah, we commented on that as well. What does that say about the American people?
What does that tell you about the dumbing down of the people of the United States?
Yeah.
And maybe it's the water because of the fluoride. I don't know. Because, fluoride is the major ingredient of Prozac.
That's true.
And everybody seems to be drinking it. They put it in our water. Well, you know who first did it? The Nazis.
You can't even.
Why would we do something the Nazis would do?
Well, the Nazis banned homeschool, so that can't be bad, right?
I don't know, but the Nazis also, they put fluoride. They were the first to put fluoride in water.
Yes,
and I don't adhere to many things Nazis do as being good.
No, that's not a direction that I kind of want to go in either. And
my wife's, as I think I told you this, my wife, who reads a lot, said to me the other day, the United States is behaving just like Germany in the 30s right now.
Yeah, we've been called plenty of names as well, pointing out the parallels to the Weimar Republic, and now it's kind of turned even worse.
Well, look at that Gallup poll where they went out. This disturbs me greatly. They went out and they polled 66,000 people internationally, and they asked them who they feared most would go to war against them. and 23, nearly 1 in 4, said the United States was who they feared would do it,
Right.
and Pakistan at 8% and China 6.
Right.
We were by far and away 23. I hang my head in shame as a veteran that's the perception of the United States today. People used to want to emulate us. They wanted to become us. Now they simply fear us, that we are the aggressor of the world, and we are who will bring war to them. And I find that just totally, like I said, I weep and hang my head in shame. It's not the country I was born in.
It's definitely a different age, and it's definitely some shocking scenarios to talk about. There's not going to be any shortage of those topics, though, for Jesse Ventura and Off the Grid. And Jesse, give everybody the little URLs of how to follow you on Twitter, your YouTube, and all that.
What's fun about me is I'm a job creator, and I'm solving immigration at the same time at a ground level. I'm a job creator because I don't know the first damn thing about a computer, and I've never owned a cell phone.
Well, then the NSA can't be tricked.
So, well, they have to hire people.
They have to follow you.
Stuff,
yeah,
so I create jobs. Now, second of all, when I do it off the grid, my technicians are all Mexican, and they've assured me if they didn't have a job with me, they'd be sneaking across the border as we speak to pick strawberries. So, and I'm being sarcastic there. As I said when I was governor, that's a joke.
It's a prerequisite. It's a prerequisite for the job.
So
Absolutely.
I'm having fun with it, but you can get me on the internet through your normal, go to aura.tv, Jesse Ventura Off the Grid, or Jesse Ventura We the People. I'm with Adam Carolla's podcast company, and all the people that are computer savvy. It isn't difficult to find my show. But see, for me it is because I don't use them. I work on them, but I admit I don't use them.
Well, we'll link to everything, make it easy for people to find you and hook up with you,
Very
make sure they're following you and tracking you. Jesse, as always, I love talking to you. It's always a good time, and definitely, wish you the best.
Let me tell you, keep up the good work, because it's dialogue like this that keeps our country strong and free, and keep exercising that First Amendment rights, because you can disagree with people, but you can still be respectful in your disagreement. That's the best way to do it.
Disagree without being disagreeable. Yes,
exactly.
I was raised that way. You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.